Okay, welcome everybody to this lecture on love and relationships. I see there's a waiting room. I'm just trying to get into Zoom over here. I think I figured it out, so we're good. Okay.
We hear you. We're good, Rabbi.
Okay, perfect. You can hear me, so we're good. Great. Thanks, Ethan.
You have to put it on Facebook, though.
Yeah, it's on Facebook. I think so. Yeah, it's there as well.
All right.
Okay, so let's get started. Okay. So let's start off with a little joke. You know, once there was a woman. She was married 19 years, and she says to her husband, "You never tell me what you're thinking of me." So she looks him in the eye and tells him, "What do you think of me?" So he says to her, "I think of you A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K." So she looks and she thinks, "Wow, that sounds amazing. I mean, tell me, what does it mean?" So he says to her, "A, you're amazing. B, you are beautiful and brilliant. C, you're charming. D, you are delightful. E, you are elegant. F, you are fantastic. G, you are gorgeous."
Story because Chevy's in the line, so he has to talk about his wife first. I hope that story ends positively.
H, you are honorable and hilarious. And she looks at him and she says, "Wow, this is absolutely unbelievable. Tell me, what does IJK stand for?" So he says to her, "I'm just kidding." So, you know, this rabbi was once asked, what's the most common topics that people want to hear about when you give them a lecture? So he says, why do the righteous suffer? And relationships. And then he says, and the truth is, they both the same thing. So during this Corona time, we're all together. We're all in small apartments, small houses. And, you know, during the year, pre-Corona, all of us go out, husband goes out, the wife goes out, the man, the woman, you know, we're not on each other's toes, we're all confined to a small space, which must put some sort of strain on the relationship. So it's easy to get on each other's nerves. Everybody's home all day long. So I thought, let's teach a little bit about the meaning of the word love and see what the Torah says about this. You know, Judaism attributes tremendous importance, as you all know, to marriage and love. The Kohen Gadol we read in last week's Parsha cannot serve in the temple unless he was married. You know, compare that to the monks who don't get married, are not supposed to be married, don't have to be married. You know, the story of the monk who goes to, the new monk who goes to the monastery, the chief monastery, and he's learning, and he's assigned to copy the text, the constitution of the church, of the monk church, from the old papers to the new papers. So he sees all the monks copying, making new Torahs, so to speak, of the monks. And then he asks the chief monk, he says, "I don't understand. What happens? Where's the original manuscript? What happens if there's a mistake on the original manuscript? That means that all the copies are fake." So the chief monk says, "You have a good point, and maybe you should go check." So he goes to the cave, deep down into the cave, and he checks the original manuscript. And the old monk can't find the new monk. Where is he? So after a few hours, he goes to search for him. And after a while, he sees him banging his head, crying, "Oy vey, oy vey, oy vey, we got it all wrong. We missed out a letter. We missed out one letter. The real word, the true word is celebrate. We left out the R." So today, let's talk about love. Right? By the way, we're also preparing for our wedding ceremony, because Shavuot is the wedding of God and the Jews. So whatever we speak about marriage between a husband and wife and relationships, the same thing goes for between God and the Jews. Shavuot is our wedding. So what is love? We're all seeking love. We want it so much. How do we define love? Today I want to define love by its 4 letters. The letters are Aleph, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And these 4 letters will explain to us exactly what love is all about. Ahava, Aleph, Hey, Bet, and Hey. So letter number 1, the Aleph. What is the Aleph of love? The Aleph of love is Echad. Echad, 1. Meaning, why do I get married? You know, when it comes time to weddings, the question is asked, why do we make such a big deal about weddings? I mean, how well do the couple know each other? You know, dating for a couple of weeks in the Orthodox circles, in maybe in the non-religious world, maybe it's a little bit more, a year or two, but how well do you know each other? What is the big celebration of the wedding? It says that the grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents for 3 generations come from their resting place in the Garden of Eden. They come celebrate by the chuppah. It says for 365 days you need to make your spouse happy. It says if there's a war going on, you don't go to war the first year. So what is it about weddings that is so special? So our sages give a parable. Imagine you have 2 friends who are born in the same town and become best friends right away. They go to preschool together and elementary school together, and they go to high school together, and they go to college together, and they really and truly love each other with all their hearts and souls. They spend every moment of every day together with each other. Can you imagine, says the Torah, what happens if after 25 years, circumstances forcefully separate them? After dancing at each other's weddings, they are forcefully separated one from the other. One goes to live here and one goes to live there. There's no WhatsApp, there's no Facebook, there's no Instagram, so they have no communication one with the other. Can you imagine how much each one misses the other one? They truly loved each other. They miss each other with all their heart and soul. Not a day goes by that they don't think of each other. And after 30 years go by, suddenly they are meeting once again together. Can you imagine the joy at their reunion? Can you imagine how happy they will be to see each other again? And this, explain our sages, is exactly what goes on. You see, every single boy and every single girl was one time one soul up there in heaven. And one day God came to the soul and said, I'm putting half of you in a boy and the other half in a girl. And the souls cried at their separation, saying, I don't want to be separated. And God said, I don't remember asking you. Half goes into a boy, half goes into a girl. Not a day goes by when the 2 halves of the soul don't cry for each other. I want to be united with my other half. The days turn into months, the months turn into years. And it could be 20 years, 25, 30 years down the line. Only at the chuppah is the reunification of the soul into one. That's when the soul becomes one again. And that is why the celebration of the wedding is such a big deal. Because it's the souls coming together as one. So I typed into Google today, what is the definition of love? What's the definition of love? I wanted to know what Rabbi Google would tell me. You can try it yourself. I got this answer. Google told me 3 things. Number 1, an intense feeling of deep affection, like babies fill parents with feelings of love. Number 2, Google said, a great interest and pleasure in something, like he loves football. And number 3, feel a deep romantic or sexual attachment to someone. Do you love me? That's what Google said. Now let's talk about this. So number 1, an intense feeling of deep affection, like babies fill parents with feelings of love. So, I have children. I have triplets, as many of you know. And I love them. I love them deeply. But I promise you that when you see them, you may think they're cute for a few seconds, and you may like them, but you don't love them like I love them. Case in point, I told the story, just before the coronavirus, I went on a trip to South Africa, 15 hours. I took all 8 kids, including triplets. We were the last to board. As we board on the plane, every single person says, oh my God, those triplets are so cute, they are so adorable, wow, and smiling and beaming. After 15 hours on that plane, with crying non-stop, there wasn't one person on talking terms with us. When we left, the stewardesses, they say to everybody, so nice, hope you enjoyed it, hope to see you again soon. When we left, not a single stewardess offered us to see us again soon. The lady behind me, who in the beginning of the flight was so nice and gentle and everything, she fell asleep with her fingers in her ears. So I promise you that when you see my triplets, you'll love them just for a few minutes, but you won't love them like a parent loves their own children. A parent loves their own children with all their heart and all their soul. They feel a deep, deep, deep love for them. Why is that? Because the children are mine. And because they are mine, that's why I love them. As any parent will tell you, because the children are mine, that's why I will love them. So what comes first? Love or marriage? This is one of the biggest mistakes we make, and why love is such a destroyer of marriages. Yitzchak, the Torah said, loved his wife after he married her. First it says he married her, and then vaye'ehaveh, and then afterwards he loved her. Think about the same thing in the second example Rabbi Google gave me when it comes to football. I love football, right? I grew up in South Africa, born in Zimbabwe. I don't love football. Give me front row tickets to the best Giants game against the Mets, whoever's playing, and it will be torture for me. I don't love football. I grew up with cricket. I grew up with rugby, but I don't love football. I know Americans think that this is the world league and the best and everything, but I don't love football. Why? Because football is not mine. But ask any American growing up on Sundays with their favorite team, if it's the Mets or the Giants or whoever other team is playing, and they love football. Why do they love it? Because it's theirs. And the same thing is with love and relationships. True love develops only after it's yours. Only after it's mine can true love, can true romantic attachment be developed. Just like the child is mine and the football is mine. You remember the scholar Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof? Tevye asks his wife Golda, "Do you love me?" Valid question. And she skirts the answer. She says, "Well, what do you mean?" And he says, "I'm serious. Do you love me?" And she answers something very profound. Golda answers, "For 25 years, I've washed your clothes, cooked your meals, cleaned your house, given you children, milked your cow. After 25 years, if that's not love, what is?" Golda is saying something very, very profound to Tevye. She's saying, I have something much, much deeper than love. For 25 years, I've given you every fiber of my being. I've given you myself. What do you want? My love? I've given you much, much deeper than that. I've given you myself, my commitment, every fiber of my being, and automatically I feel a deep and passionate love for you. That is love. If you marry somebody because you love them, that's like saying, like the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, it's like saying, I marry you because of your money, because of your looks, because of X, Y, and Z. Like Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Father says, if you marry somebody because of something, B'teila davar, it's not going to last. You need to marry somebody not because of something. And if you marry somebody because you love them, today you love them, tomorrow you won't love them. But if you marry somebody, you make a deep, deep love and attachment with them, that is love. That is commitment. That is something that will last. That is the ketubah. That is commitment. True love comes from spending every moment of every day, one with the other, and doing favors for one for the other, doing things for another. That's what leads to true love. By the way, why do we have a desire to become one? God put it in the Torah. Originally, man was created male and female together. God separated them, and ever since then, we want to become one. Al Kain Yazov Ish et aviv ve'et imo v'ayu lebasar echad. Therefore, man wants to leave his father and mother, cleave to his spouse, and become one with her. But then God is the same thing. God originally was a bachelor. He created human beings, us, the world, Jews, to unite and bond with him to become one. It's the same idea. By the way, the Alter Rebbe also said the same thing. He said once, Ich will ze garnish, I don't want anything. Ich will nicht dein Gan Eden, I don't want your Gan Eden, he turns to God. I don't want your paradise. I don't want your Olam Haba, your world of truth. Ich will mehr nicht. All I want is you, he says to God. All I want is you, your essence. That is marriage. You see, to say I love you is great, but to say something much more powerful would be, I am yours. I am yours. With every fiber of my being, automatically the love will follow. Automatically, just like the football, just like the child. It's mine. Once you feel it's yours, love, passionate and deep, deep, deep love will automatically follow. It's much more powerful to say, I am yours, with every fiber of my being, like Golda said to Tevye. There's a story told about a couple who couldn't have children for many years. And the Talmud says if you don't have children for 10 years, you can get divorced. Today it's not so prevalent, but in the olden days that's what they did. So this couple couldn't have children. They came to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who was then the leader of the generation, and they told him their predicament, they want to get divorced. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said to them, just like when you got married, you threw a wonderful party, and you had such joy, so too with your divorce. Make a beautiful party. After you make the party, I'll give you the get, no problem. Fine. So the husband and wife, they made a party to celebrate the divorce. They invited their friends, and during the party, the husband was drinking. He drank quite a bit, and he told his wife, I love you so much. You can take any item you want from this house. Take whatever you want. My most precious possession, the thing that you love the most, take it. So she gave him a lot more to drink, this very, very deep and powerful vodka, wine, whatever, and he drank, got drunk. When he was drunk, she told her servants, pick him up and bring him to my house, to my parents' house. The next morning he woke up and he sees that he's in his wife's house, his parents-in-law's house. So he asked his wife, what is this? So she said to him, you told me to pick the most precious item I have in your house. And the most precious thing, the thing I love the most, is you. So they realized they still had an intense love one for the other. So they went back to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and they told him the story. So he said to them, because I see that you have this deep, deep bond and love one for the other, you literally cannot live one with the other. Just like you have a right hand, you have a left hand, you have a spouse. So I give you my blessing that you will be having children within the year. And that's what happened. You see, the story illustrates the wife, she didn't want her husband's car. She didn't want his money. She didn't want his looks. She didn't want anything about him. She wanted him. That is marriage. That is relationship. To take the thing, the essence. There was once, many years ago, an IDF soldier who had just gotten married. And as I mentioned before, according to the Torah, when you get married, you don't have to serve in the army for a year. But today's day and age, including in 2014, there were a lot of khatanim who had just got married and went to the army. Unfortunately, some of them were injured and died. So this happened many years ago, decades ago. There was a husband who had just gotten married, and he went to serve in one of the wars in Israel. And when he served in the army, he was wounded terribly, and he lost both his legs. And before his wife came to visit him in the hospital, he sent her a message, and he said to her, listen, you have your whole life ahead of you. I don't have my legs anymore. I'm not going to be a normal person for the rest of my life. I'm prepared to give you a get. I'm prepared to divorce you. No hard feelings. Don't even think about it. No problem at all. And she looks at him and she says, I never married your legs. I married you. It doesn't matter that you don't have legs. I married you. I never married your legs. You are still you. You are still the same person. And therefore the love that I feel for you, I still have. And therefore I'll remain committed and bonding with you just like before. There was a student of the Mizritcha Magid. Mizritcha Magid was the student of the Baal Shem Tov. So this student of the Mizritcha Magid, he couldn't find his spouse because he didn't have money. He was a poor guy. Nice guy, but a poor guy. So he went to the Mizritcha Magid and he told him, I can't find my spouse because I don't have the money. So the Mizritcha Magid said, how much money do you need? He said, I need 1,000 rubles. 1,000 rubles is what I need. So the Magid sent him off and he told him, I give you a blessing, but I want you to accept the first marriage proposal that is offered for you. The first shidduch, the first girl that is offered to you, accept her and marry her. Now, by the way, I'm not suggesting that all single girls and guys should do this. Obviously, it has to make sense. But this is what the Mizritcha Magid told this man. So he went off on his way. And when he was on his way to his town, he stopped off in an inn, in a motel. He stopped off for the night. And when he got to this place, he sat in a corner, and there was a bunch of rowdy guys all drinking and slurping and whatever. And they drunk, and he tries to mind his own business. But at one point, one of these people goes over to this guy. And he says, what do you want? What are you doing here? And he says, I'm here to find my shidduch. He says, how do you know who's your shidduch going to be? He says, my Rebbe told me the first suggestion offered to me, I'm going to marry her. So these guys were all drunk. They said that they thought this was the funniest thing ever for a guy to accept the first proposal ever. They thought it was hilarious. So one of them said, you know what? I have somebody right here. There's a girl right here. She's the daughter of the innkeeper. Why don't you marry her? So he said, this is agreeable to me. If it's agreeable to her, no problem. So they started making jokes. They called the girl in on their joke. And they made a shidduch, and he said, no problem. You are now engaged to marry. And they all had drinks and more drinks and more drinks. It was a rowdy party, beautiful. After about half an hour of this drinking, so the crowd said, you know what? Why don't we do the wedding right now? So he said, sure, I'm willing to marry her. And they started laughing, making a joke. And she's playing game. And then they said, 1 second, but we don't know how to write a ketubah. So he said, no problem, I know how to write it. So he started writing the ketubah. He wrote everything. And then he gave her a ring. And he said, Harayat mikudeshet li b'tabat zokat Moshe ve'Yisrael. He did the whole thing. Meantime, they are laughing and laughing and laughing. After they had their whole laugh, after the whole wedding, it's like 4 a.m., they kick him out of this inn. They kicked him out. They had their fun. They kicked him out. He goes outside. And it's cold, but he's standing there. I mean, this is his wife now. And in the morning, 9 a.m., in walks in the innkeeper, and he sees this beggar in torn, tattered clothing right over there outside. And he says, who are you? He says, oh, hello, father-in-law. And this guy's like, what? Father-in-law? This crazy drunk beggar, like father-in-law? So he goes inside, and the beggar follows him. And he's like, pointing to to his daughter, like, who's this guy? And his daughter says to him, oh, this guy, we played a joke on him last night, I married him secretly. And the father-in-law is like, hold on, what happened? And he finds out exactly what happened. And then he takes his hand and he slaps this guy once, twice. He says, you crazy guy, these fools, these drunkards may not know what have done, but you know better than that, you've married her. He says, and then he thinks, oh my God, I better be nice to him because I need a get. He says, okay, here's a ruble. Give my daughter a get now. Divorce her. And he says, oh no, that's my wife. He says, yes, 2 rubles. There's 2 rubles, right to get. No problem. It's a joke. Nobody taking this seriously. And the guy's like, no, this is my wife. And then he says, okay, he ups his offer, 10 rubles, 20 rubles, 50 rubles. He says, I'll give you 100 rubles. Just divorce her. He says, absolutely not. He said, why not? He says, my Rebbe, the Mizritcha Maggid, told me to accept the first marriage proposal, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not giving her up. If my Rebbe tells me to divorce her, then I divorce her. So the guy sees he has no choice. He takes the bride and groom, basically, to the Mizritcha Maggid. They travel to him. And he tells the Mizritcha Maggid the story of this poor idiot, he calls him, who played this joke and thought it was serious. And he married my daughter, now I want to get. And I'm prepared to give him 100 rubles. So the Mizritcha Maggid told the father-in-law, he said, listen, I'll speak to the guy. I'll sort it out for you. So he makes the guy wait, and he sends the father-in-law out, and then he brings this young man in. And he gives him a couple of coins, and he says, go buy a brand new suit. Go take a shower. And go buy a new hat. Go get a haircut. And then come back here. And after a few hours, he calls the father-in-law and the daughter back. And as they come in, this Khatan was sitting in a side room, in an inner room, and they walked straight past him. They didn't even recognize him. And he says to the father-in-law, he says, listen, I spoke to the guy, and he's willing to give your daughter a divorce. He wants 1,000 rubles, and he'll divorce on his way, no problem. So the father-in-law says, you know what, it's a lot of money, but 1,000 rubles to get the divorce and whatever, fine, I'll do it, no problem. He was a rich man. So then the Mizritcha Maggid said, I have a shidduch for your daughter. May I suggest somebody? So the Maggid Mizritcha was a respectable man, and he said, sure, tell me who it is. He says, this man, he comes from a fine family, he's got sterling midot, great midot, he's a very smart man, a very learned man, a very wealthy man. And the daughter-in-law's like, wow, that's amazing. The father-in-law, amazing. Who's this man? So the Mizritcha Maggid said, did you see the man as you were walking in? Did you see the man standing over there? So the daughter says, that man, whoever he is, made a very favorable impression upon me. So the Mizritcha Maggid calls him in. And he says, look carefully, look closely at this man. And the father-in-law and the daughter-in-law recognize the same man who was her husband. And the Mizritcha Maggid explains, he says, this man is an amazing, amazing man, and his only crime was that he was poor. But now he's rich, he has 1,000 rubles. He's a rich man. So he can give you this dowry, and he can marry you, no problem at all. And the woman was taught a tremendous lesson. You see, of course, she married this guy and happily married to him, and they lived a happy life. But the Mizritcha Maggid taught her that in love, don't look at the externalities. You see, the way the guy was packaged before in poor and torn clothing, He wasn't packaged correctly, but as soon as she was able to see beyond that, as soon as she was able to see his essence, she was able to appreciate him for who he was. Because love is all about commitment. What's letter number one? The Aleph is echad, is one. When you realize that you have a hand, you have a leg, you have a spouse, it's one with who you are, that is letter number one, level number one of finding true love and remaining committed. Because remember, love can only come after you are totally and utterly committed. By the way, I had the same experience, not the same, but I was 24 years old, I grew up, I never met a girl in my life, besides for the girls at my father's synagogue in Orange Grove, South Africa, the ones I said Shabbat Shalom to at the Kiddush, but we grew up separate, boys and girls. And when I was dating my wife, Chevy, we dated, and I was a very indecisive person. I could not decide in general with anything. I couldn't decide on anything. And I remember the date that I went, we had flowers, and I was going to propose to my wife. I was in the car, and I said, I can't do this. I got cold feet. I cannot do this. I don't know what to do. And it was that point that I made a firm decision. I said, the girl's great. I like her. There's a chemistry between us. There's some sort of feelings between us. I'm just going to jump in because everything makes sense. Even though I'm afraid, terrified, I'm going to jump in. And as soon as I made that proposal, I actually became one of the most decisive people that I know. Never had indecision again in my life. But once I made that commitment, 17 years later and 8 kids later, the love only grows every single day. So stuck in isolation with the coronavirus, people are getting edgy, including myself, including friends of mine, people I know. It's hard, it's tough. You by yourself, with your spouse, with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend, with kids, it's very, very tough. But perhaps we could utilize this as an opportunity when you don't have distractions, when you don't have anything else. The man's not going to work, the wife's not going to work, everybody's at home. Take this opportunity to realize, to think, to contemplate why it is that you fell in love in the first place with your spouse. When you strip from the externalities, you can actually communicate one with the other and realize again, fall in love again one with the other. Realize that the essence of the person, don't focus on what bothers you on a day-to-day basis. That is irrelevant. What's relevant is that this person is the other part of your soul. That this person is a part and parcel of who you are. And you have a tremendous opportunity to spend time one with the other, and this opportunity doesn't present itself every single day. The same thing is with dating, by the way. Dating is non-existent. I know Zoom and dating apps, it's not the same as in-person dating. So this is a time to realize and focus on what truly I want and to commit that the next time I date, I actually want to marry and commit. The Hasidic master, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, said once that he learned what it means, the true meaning of love from 2 beggars. He once went past 2 beggars, and he heard one drunk beggar saying to the other, I love you, and the other guy saying, no, you don't. And he's saying, what do you mean? I do love you. And the other guy says, no, you don't, because if you loved me, how come you don't know what's hurting me? And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev said, that's amazing, because if you love somebody, you know them, you know the essence, you know everything about them, you know what is bothering them. So letter number 1 is Aleph, Ahava. Letter number 1. We move on to letter number 2. What is letter number 2 in the word Ahava, love? It's a Hey. What does Hey stand for? So our sages tell us Hey stands for the word Hav. The word give. You see, here's the problem with marriage. When a child grows up, he or she are used to receiving everything. Think about my kids, think about your kids. You give them everything. So when I grew up, when a child grows up, he or she associate love with receiving things. Right? A parent gives a child everything. First it's diapers, then it's toys, then it's money, then it's everything. A parent loves a child so much that you give and you give and you give the child. By the way, who do you love more? Do you love your father more, your mother more? Do you love your child more? And the answer is undoubtedly you'd love your child more. Why? First of all, that's the way God is. God is a true giver, so you're emulating God when you give. But the other reason is because you don't give your parents as much as you give your children. So when you give and give and give, you fall more and more and more and more in love. But here's the problem. You see, when you come into a marriage after 20 years or 25 or 35 or 40 years of receiving and receiving and receiving, and you've associated love with receiving, you want your spouse to give you, to give you, to give you, and then you'll give them, and then you'll give them, and then you'll give them, which causes tremendous conflict. Because love is a paradox. It's the other way around. You need to be vulnerable. You need to give and give and give. If you want yourself to be the king, then you have to treat your wife like a queen. How long are you going to be the king? As long as you treat your wife like a queen. It's giving and giving and giving, and that's the paradox of love. You know, David and Michal. David HaMelech, King David, he had 18 wives. One of them was Michal. So one time David HaMelech was coming back and he was dancing and he was so joyous. It says David mefazezu mechalkel. He was dancing and making himself crazy in the streets. He was so happy. And Michal, his wife, was looking from a window. And it says in the Torah that she was devastated. She was so embarrassed. She was mortified. This is what my husband's doing. He's embarrassing himself in front of the streets, in front of the people. So when he came home, she told him, you know, my father, Shaul, the king, would never do this. And he had to explain to her that marriage is not about your father. It's about a new bond between us. You see, we bring to the marriage preconceived notions from our parents, from the way we grew up. So Michal's telling David, you know, I grew up with a father who would never do that. And King David answers her, it's precisely because of that Hashem took the kingdom away from your father. And this is for a whole different lesson. Because of the word bittul, he had to nullify himself totally and utterly, and your father didn't. That's why he took it away. The whole story with Amalek. But the idea is we bring preconceived notions about love to the wedding, to the spouse. I'm used to receiving, so I want to receive and then I'll give. No, it doesn't work that way. By the way, charity is the same idea. If you want to make money, you need to give. What do you mean I need to give? If I give, I lose money. No. If you give, you make money. That's how you make it, not lose it. It's the same idea as love. You know, they tell the story of the guy who comes to the rabbi. He says, Rabbi, I want to kill my wife. You know, marriages are very difficult. Marriages are very, very difficult. To do shidduchim are very difficult. You know, a couple of years ago, I tried my luck with this specific shidduch. I thought I had an incredible girl for somebody. So I took out my phone. I start texting. I say to this guy, his name is Shalom. I text him. I say, I have an incredible girl for you. I think she's amazing. Please call me ASAP. But you know, phones are amazing features. But by mistake, instead of sending that message to Shalom, S-H-A, I sent the message to Shabbat Minyan. Shabbat Minyan, you know, WhatsApps and BBMs in those days, you make mistakes. So a couple of hundred people got a message from their favorite rabbi. I have an incredible girl for you. I think she's amazing. Please call me ASAP. You can imagine that my phone was ringing off the hook and tremendous amount of messages. So I'm just going to tell you 3 of them. One guy, married, father of 4 children. He texted me, Rabbi, right now I am okay, but if anything changes, I'll let you know. Another guy, father of 2 children, texted me. He says, Rabbi, this is why I love you. And a third person, a woman who I'd married her and her husband off a year before, texted me. She says, Rabbi, I just saw the message you sent my husband. Is this what you think of me? So anyway, getting back to the story. So the guy says to his wife, the guy says to the rabbi, you know, I'm fed up with my wife. I want to kill her. I want to kill her. So the rabbi says to him, you know, he tries to convince him out, and then he realizes the guy's adamant. He doesn't love his wife. He wants to kill her. So he says to him, listen, if you go and kill her, you're going to be arrested. You're going to sit in jail, and that's not going to be very good. So I have a suggestion for you. He says, it says in the Torah that if you make a pledge to the local synagogue and you don't fulfill it within a year, your wife will die. So you know what? Go to the synagogue, make a tremendous pledge. And after a year, don't fulfill it, don't give it, and your wife will die. Everything will be fine. Nobody will realize. The man says, Rabbi, you are a genius. I'm going to do exactly that. But then the rabbi said to the man, if you do that, everybody will realize that you killed your wife on purpose. If you're going to be mean to her during the year. So what you need to do, you need to pretend that you will be nice to her. Pretend to do good things to her. And then everybody will realize that you actually have a great relationship and, she died, it's not your fault. Rabbi, you're a genius. That's exactly what I'm going to do. He goes to shul, local Chabad rabbi, he says to him, on Rosh Hashanah, I pledge $1 million to the synagogue. Rabbi is so excited, the community, this guy's pledging $1 million. Amazing. Fine. After Yom Tov, he knows he has to act, so he buys his wife a beautiful gift, a beautiful dress. And his wife's like shocked, flabbergasted. The guy's never bought her a gift in his life. Like, what happened? He says, oh, I love you so much. I love you. What? The next week, he takes her out to a restaurant, and she's like shocked. You taking me out to a restaurant? Like, what's going on? She's like, what's the catch over here? And they had such a great time, such a great, amazing conversation. No, a week later, he buys her a ring, and she can't believe this. And a few months go by like this. Right before the end of the year, the guy comes running to the rabbi. He says, Rabbi, I have a massive problem. Rabbi says, what's the problem? He says, I made a pledge, $1 million to the local Chabad. What do I do? So the rabbi says, no problem, don't pay it. Your wife will die. He says, no, I don't want my wife to die. The rabbi says, why not? He says, because I love her. What happened? By him giving to his wife reciprocated and gave back. But more deeper than that, what happened was when he gave, he fell in love with her. When he gave her, he realized why he fell in love with her originally. You see, when you give and you give and you give, you fall in love. It's why we love our kids so much, because you give them everything. You could stare at that baby who wakes you up at 2 a.m., that baby who doesn't let you sleep on a 15-hour flight and tortures you, but you love them so much because they are yours. Why do you love them so much? Because you give them and you give them and you give them. So the rabbi said, well, you owe the Chabad rabbi $1 million, you better pay him up. The guy had to do it. So a practical suggestion during this Corona period, when we all stuck at home and it's all tough and maybe people are suffering from the economy, it's hard to buy expensive gifts. But one of the gifts we can certainly give to our spouse in this time is the gift of time. Spend 15 minutes one with the other, having coffee or drinking hot chocolate or drinking whatever you want, and just listen one to the other without interruptions. The key is to listen, and when your spouse finishes speaking, you be quiet and you listen. And they finish speaking, you listen, and you listen, and you listen. For 15 minutes a day, it's the gift of quality time, one of the 5 languages of love, especially if that's your spouse's. But that is what we could all do during the Corona. So we've discussed so far Aleph, which is the Aleph of Ahava, which is Echad, which is 1. We've discussed the Hey of Ahava, of love, which is Hav, which is give. And now we come to the Bet. What's the Bet of Ahava, the Bet of love? The bet of love is bitul. Bitul means nullification, but more specifically, surrender. You want to stay in love? Surrender yourself. King Solomon, who was married to 1,000 wives, says in one place, Matzah isha matzah tov. You find a woman, you find good. But in another place, in another book, he writes, Motzeh ani mar mimavet et haisha. I find a woman to be more bitter than death. Now, what is it? Maybe it was different wives that he had, maybe it was different times that he had. But King Solomon wouldn't do that. He would either say a woman is more bitter than death, or a woman is good. Which one is it? And what he meant to say is, Matzah isha matzah tov. If things are good, a woman is great. But Motzeh ani mar mimavet taisha. How do you find a woman to be more bitter than death if it's ani? If it's the ego, if the love is based on me, on the I, on the ego. Motzeh ani, if it's all about me, and you don't surrender yourself, then a woman can become more bitter than death. A spouse can become more bitter than death. You see, I tend to look at my spouse in my eyes. I look at the world in my eyes, and men and women are so different. And I'm going to name just a couple of these differences to make it clear. You know, how much time do we speak, for example? You know that an average woman speaks 20,000 words a day. while a man, an average man, speaks 7,000 words a day. That's why, by the way, 84% of domestic violence is a man hitting a woman. It's not because he's stronger, it's because he ran out of words. So therefore it's better to argue with a man in the beginning of the day when he still has a fresh supply of words than at the end of the day. So to a woman who gets upset when the man doesn't talk, he just ran out of his words. And to a man who gets upset when the woman's talking non-stop, she has still a fresh supply of words to speak. And then, why do we talk? One of the main complaints that a woman has about a husband is, he doesn't talk to me. Ask the man, what do you mean I don't talk to her? Of course I talk to her. You know the story of the guy who came to, the couple came to the rabbi, and the woman's complaining that he doesn't love me. So the rabbi asks the guy, do you love her? He says, of course I love her. So the woman says, you never tell me. So the man says, 28 years ago when I married you, I said I love you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. So you ask a man, he says, what do you mean? Of course I'm communicating. Ask the woman, he's not communicating. Why? Because a man communicates about issues. He says, what do you mean? What do we talk about? We talk about the minuses in the bank account. We talk about my problems at the job that I have. We talk about the issues of my kids in school. But she says, we never spoke. Why is that? Because the difference between a man and a woman speaking is, for a man, speech is just a way of relaying information, problem solving. For a woman, speech is all about connection. So a woman just wants to speak and speak and speak. It's her way of connecting, while a man wants to speak just to resolve the issues. So a man comes home and he asks his wife, how was your day? So she says, in the morning when you left, the washing machine broke and there was a flood all over the floor. So what does the man think? Okay, in his mind he thinks, okay, washing machine broke, I've got to get the handyman, I've got to fix it right away. He's thinking silently. And then she says, oh, the water's all the floor is covered with water. So automatically what he thinks is, in his mind he's playing, okay, I've got to get somebody to fix the carpet and to scrub it clear. This is what he's thinking. He's thinking problem solving. And then at the end of the conversation, at the end of the rant, half an hour rant, the woman says, oh, and then the technician came and fixed the washing machine and everything's fine with the carpet. And the husband's like, what are you saying? Why did you tell me that? If everything's fixed, why do you tell me that? Because the woman is doing it as a connection. And the man, he doesn't realize, what do you mean? You have a problem, you fixed it, so why are you telling me? So when we understand why it is that we're speaking and how much words we need to speak, so a man and a woman won't get upset with each other. This is what it's called surrender. This is the bet, bitul, realizing that your spouse is different to you and I need to surrender myself, my own ego, to somebody who's different than me. Another example, Yankel and Sarah will be going out to a wedding and Sarah asks Yankel, how do I look? And in his mind, she wants to know how he looks. Fine, you look fine, great, let's go. And a woman, what does she want? She wants him to tell her how beautiful she is and spend time telling her how beautiful she is. You know, after 7 days of a woman giving the silent treatment to a man, so he needs his shirt. So he says to her, do you know where my shirt is? So she says, now you're talking to me? Do you realize that we haven't spoken for 7 days and we're in a fight? He says, oh, I thought we were just getting along so well. Number 3, when a man sleeps, 70% of his brain shuts down. He doesn't hear anything. No baby crying. The house can burn down. He doesn't hear a thing. When a woman sleeps, 90% of her brain is still active. A man will read something in a newspaper or read something on his phone. He doesn't hear anything. The hearing part of his brain shuts off. He's on the phone. He can't do anything else. He's on the phone. He can only listen to one conversation. He cannot have any background noise. A woman is exactly the opposite. A woman can multitask. And so because of this, a woman shouldn't get upset and think the man is ignoring her when he's on his phone. He just doesn't hear. He's not ignoring you, he doesn't hear you. He's so absorbed with his phone. And therefore a man needs to realize when he comes home, he needs to spend time with his wife first before he reads newspapers and watches television and goes on his phone, because he won't hear anything. So once you understand that you are different, you can surrender your personality to the other person. You know, the way men and women talk are extremely different. For example, when a woman says 5 minutes, she means, when she says, I'll be ready in 5 minutes, she means half an hour. It's the same thing that a man says to the wife, I'll take the trash out in 5 minutes, after the football game. When a woman says, nothing is wrong, she means something and you better be on your toes. When a woman says, go ahead, this is a dare. When a woman says, that is okay, it's one of the most dangerous statements to hear. When a woman says thanks, she's thanking you, it's great. When a woman says thanks a lot, be careful. How do we reward points? This is one of the greatest pitfalls. And I'll give you an example. This morning I woke up at 5:30 a.m. and the triplets woke up already at 6:30. So I let my wife sleep in. So I took each of the triplets and I changed their diapers. So I gave myself 5,000 points for each diaper that I changed. Abigail, David, Yehuda, 3 diapers, that's 15,000 points. So in my mind, I'm up 15,000 points over my wife. I then gave them breakfast. Each bowl of cereal and milk that I pour for them, I give myself 5,000 points each. So that's already 30,000 points, and it's only 7 a.m. My 5-year-old, my 7-year-old, the rest of the kids all wake up. I give them all breakfast. That's 5 kids breakfast. That's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25,000 points. So I'm up now 55,000 points. While I'm davening with the kids, I spend time with them, I learn with them. Each kid I learn with is 10,000 points. So by the time it's 9 a.m., I've given myself 75,000 points and I'm good for the day. That's it. My wife now needs to catch up with me. So I can go to my man cave, spend the rest of the day there and just rack it in. See, men reward themselves with points very generously. But the truth is, I woke up 5:30 a.m., but my wife at 2:30 a.m. had the first girl, my 4-year-old, come to her bed, because remember, women, 90% of their brain is active even when they're sleeping. So Musha goes to my wife. And at 3:30 a.m., Sarah came to my wife as well, and she has to deal with each one, take them to the toilet, or they tuck them back in bed. And then afterwards, by the time 1 p.m. has arrived, she's probably changed 17 diapers, gave them all lunch, fed them, played with them, cried with them, and the entire day is like this. And in my mind, I give her 1 point for each diaper she's changed. Because men reward themselves generously while giving their spouse very, very little points. The reward system is very warped in a man's eyes. Not just that, but men don't realize. They think they have to do big things to satisfy their wives, right? So you don't do anything for your wife for a long time, and you realize that your marriage is in jeopardy. So what do? You'll go take a large amount of money and buy a $5,000 ring or a $50,000 ring. You'll bring it to your spouse, and you'll think you've solved the problems for at least the last year, plus the following year you're good because you bought her such an expensive present. But in the woman's eyes, when you buy her a present, you've got 1 point. 1 point, whether it's big, whether it's small. Think about this. When a man buys a bouquet of 12 roses for a woman, so he thinks, if I bought 1 rose, it's 1 point. So 12 roses is 12 points. For a woman, if you bought 1 rose, that's 1 point. You bought it 12 days, that's 12 points. But if you bought 12 roses in one shot, that is 1 point. For a man, that is so inconvenient. It doesn't make sense. Right? The man's always calculating. Think about this. A man says, why do I buy flowers? They quiver, they melt away after a while. So he thinks to himself, okay, if every Friday I buy flowers, that's $20. 4 times Fridays, that's $80. He thinks to himself, okay, so I could save $960 a year. Over 10 years, I could save $10,000. How inefficient to buy flowers, which wither away. But a woman rewards points for every single small thing or big thing. It's 1 point. And men don't realize this, including myself. So, the third letter of love is bet, meaning bitul, meaning I need to surrender myself. I need to realize that my spouse is totally different to who I am. It's a different person. It's my right hand, my left hand. It's a part and parcel of who I am, but it's not me. And I need to surrender myself, become vulnerable in order to obtain and remain firmly in love after that commitment I made in marriage. So the aleph of ahava, the aleph of love, is echad, is one. You want to truly stay married? It's commitment. Realize that you're 2 parts of one soul, you're 2 parts of one being. The hey is hav. You want to maintain that marriage? Give. The more you give, the more you fall in love. Deeper and deeper and deeper in love. And the bet is bittul, is surrender. Because without surrender, you can't do anything. And finally, we come to the last hey. The last hey, right, of ahava, The last Hey is Hakadosh Baruch Hu. The last Hey is Hashem, Havaya. Hakadosh Baruch Hu, God, Hashem. The last Hey is Hashem. You see, Ish and Isha. The word man and woman in Hebrew, Ish and Isha. Aleph Yud Shin is Ish. Aleph Shin Hey is Isha. So both of them have an Aleph, and both of them have a Shin, right? Aleph, Yud, Shin, and Isha. Both have an Aleph. The difference between them is the Yud in the Ish, and the Hey in the Isha. Yud and Hey spell out, Yud and Hey is God's name. In order for marriage to thrive, you need God in that marriage. The moment you take the Yud and the Hey out, what do you get? If you take the Yud out of Ish, you get Esh. If you take the Hey out of Isha, you get Esh, you get a fire. In order for a marriage, that love, that commitment to persevere, you need God inside it. I know a lot of you have watched Unorthodox. I haven't watched it, but if maybe I'll give a shir, a lecture on it one time, if somebody cares to tell me exactly what it is. But in order for the marriage to thrive, you need God in that marriage. The laws of family purity are essential to the marriage, not just from a practical perspective, but also from a godly and a spiritual perspective. When a woman goes to mikveh and a man and a woman are together for 2 weeks and then they're not together for 2 weeks, it allows the marriage to remain fresh. It allows the man and the woman to miss each other, to yearn one for the other. When can I go? When's mikveh night? When can I be together one with? When can I touch her again? When can I touch him again? When can I be with him again? It creates a certain freshness in the marriage. The laws of family purity help us bring God into that marriage, help us ensure that the marriage will survive intact. It's the third partner of the marriage. You know the joke, the guy, there was an English language competition, and all the professors of the English language were brought, and they were asked about different words, and eventually one of the top professors, English professor, was asked, can you tell us in one sentence, what is the difference between the word complete and the word finished? You know, because they're very, very, very similar in the English language. And he thinks for a second and he says, when a man marries the right woman, he is complete. If a man marries the wrong woman, he is finished. And if the right one catches you with the wrong one, you are completely finished. Today we have discussed a way of complete marriage, complete wholesome marriage. The word ahava, the secret of love, lies in its 4 letters. The letter Aleph, the letter Hey, the letter Bet, and the letter Hey spell out the word ahava. Aleph is echad, is one. When you make you and your spouse a firm commitment that you are one. The next Hey, and you give one to the other. You give and you become vulnerable. And the more you give, the more you fall in love. And finally, the third letter Bet is bitul. You are nullifying. You are surrendering yourself to your spouse, and you realize you and her and you and him are totally different. And then finally, you bring the final letter Hey. You bring God into the marriage. Then you have a true and wholesome everlasting love. I wish every single one of you here that you should have an incredible, incredible marriage. Enjoy every moment of it.